All right, this tutorial will cover how to assemble and put together different components to form a basic robotics frame. So I will show you how to create some of the stuff in this image. The first thing we're going to do, we'll close out of this. Make sure that you're starting in the correct folder. I'm going to go ahead and select FTC Robotics, 2022 Fright Frenzy, and then go ahead and select your personal folder. First thing you want to do is give this a name. So I'll just put in my initials and call this TestBot. We'll call this one Model B. We'll go ahead and save that. It gives us our name and our first save. And we're not going to create a bunch of the components or a bunch of the models, the parts themselves. We're going to go ahead and grab those out of the robotics folder. So I'm going to come up here and click on FTC Robotics. And you can see there's a folder called VexPro, Rev Robotics. Come down further, there's one for Actobotics and AndyMark. Those are all the companies that we buy our parts from. So if I come into the VexPro folder, you can see that I've got the wheels that we use for some of our robots. These aren't the mechanical wheels, but these are some of the softer wheels we use. If I come back and look at Rev Robotics, there's the control hub and some of the motors and some of the other parts we've used in the past from Rev Robotics. I come down here to Actobotics. This is where most of our stuff is going to be. If I click on this folder, you can see I've got my channel pieces. We're going to use that to make our frame, and then a whole lot of other small little parts and adapter pieces that we're going to use. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the channel. I'll go ahead. This needs to be saved already before you do anything else. And I'm going to go ahead and select this little 12-inch piece of channel. I'm going to right-click and say Insert into Current Design. And when it does that, it's going to kind of pop in there. It opens up with a Move window, so I can go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees. I want this to be part of my frame of my robot. And I'm going to hit OK. Anytime you insert a piece in, it's going to come in with this link. You want to make sure that you right-click on it, come down and break that link. Okay, that links this piece back to here, and we just want to have this piece by itself. Now, instead of bringing it in over and over and over again, I can just come in here and select that piece. I can right-click on it and say Copy. Then I can just right-click. And I've got two options. I've got Paste and Paste New. If I click Paste, once again, it's going to bring up with that Move menu. So I can just kind of slide it off to the side a little bit. Don't have to worry about the distance. I'm just going to say OK. I can also right-click and say Paste New. Brings up the same menu, and it slides it over to the side. So you're probably wondering, it looks like I've got three identical beams. What's the difference between Paste and Paste New? Well, if I come up here to the extrude command, we'll just say capture position, and I go ahead and I grab this face. That's a profile. I can extrude that profile, even though it's an already created piece. I can take this and move it backwards, and now I think you can obviously see the difference between Paste and Paste New. Paste is going to make a copy that is linked to the original one. Paste New is going to paste in a new version of it that is not linked. So you can see that this is version 3, the first instance, and the second instance. I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel that. This is version 3, and this is copy 1. So this is a brand new thing. This is the 12-inch. That's the serial number part for the company, V3. The parentheses 1 means that it's a brand new part. These have the exact same name, except it's :1 and :2. So this is the first copy, and this is the second copy of that. Much easier way to keep track of that. These little gray boxes means that these are all components. I can come up here to the Inspect menu, and I can turn on Component Color Cycle Toggling. And when I do that, it's going to put a color to each of these components. And you can see that these two orange components are linked together, and this light pink one is its new thing. So I want my two frame rails to be linked, so I'm going to go ahead and leave these two. I'm just going to click on this one and delete it. I'm be okay with that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in a little, I don't know, let's say a 9-inch chunk. I'll right click, insert that into my design. And I'm going to put this piece across the top of these two. So I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees this way, and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees that way. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it stuck in the middle of the beam. That's totally fine. To put these together, in real life we would use nuts and bolts, but in the computer we don't need to use that. We're going to use this section up here where it says assemble, and we're just going to use this command. You can just click it for a normal joint, or you can click on here and see some more of the other options. I'm going to click up here and click on joint. And I'm going to go ahead, come down here to grab the orbit command. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to hit the escape key to get out of the orbit command. And if I hold my mouse on this top surface, you can see there's all those little plus signs all over the place. And those are joint origins, where I can link these two pieces together, I can bolt them together. But as I move my mouse, the joint origins change. So I want to be on this top face, but I want to keep those origins where they are. I want to pick one that I want to select. I'm going to hold down Control on my keyboard, or Command if you're on a Mac. And when I do that, then those joint origins stay in place. And I'm just going to select this one that's on this top surface, but it's in the middle of this big hole. So I'm going to select that as one of my origins. And when I do that, that piece kind of goes translucent. Come back down here to orbit. I'm going to come back over here to the top. I'm going to hit escape to get out of the orbit command. And same thing, when I put my mouse over top something, it's going to give me the possible joint origins. So I want to be on this top surface, hold down Control or Command, whether you're on a PC or a Mac. And I want to grab this, we'll grab this top circle here. Let's grab the second one in. And you can see that other piece moves over here and puts itself on top. We've got some options. We can kind of flip it of which surfaces are connected. This is the way I want it. I can do some rotating, but we'll go ahead and leave it right there where we had it at 90 degrees. You can slide in different directions. I'm going to go ahead and put that back to 0. And we'll say OK. And now I've made a rigid joint between those two pieces. If I grab these, okay. So when I go ahead and grab this piece, I can kind of move this piece around. I just kind of click and drag with my mouse. I can also click and drag both of these. So I want to go ahead and pin something down. So let me see which one. That's the first one. This second one, what's the first one? I'm going to right click. You just need to ground one of your parts. We'll just capture the position. We'll leave it there. And that puts a little safety pin in it over here in the menu. And now when I try to click and drag this, it won't move, but these things will. So I'll go ahead. I'm going to joint this piece to this piece. It doesn't have to be anywhere lined up. We'll start the joint command. And then I'll have to use the orbit tool to get to the bottom side. Hit the escape to get out of the orbit tool. I think I used this last hole on the end, so I'm going to hit Control or Command to keep it in place. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to flip around over here, come in, and then I grab the center of this second hole over here. So I'm going to hold down. And it's going to bring this piece over. It's going to leave this one. It just does whatever piece you did, but when I hit OK, it's going to bring the other one with it. So now I've got the start of a frame little piece. Okay. You don't have to attach the channel like this. Let me go ahead. I forgot to break the link. So I'm going to right click, break link. You always want to be checking and making sure that you break those links. So let me grab a smaller 6-inch piece. I'm going to insert that into the design. I'm going to leave it just like that, just to show you that it doesn't matter where it is or what it looks like. I'll remember to break this one, break the link. And this time I'm going to come back and I'm going to grab this little guy right here, this little kind of 90-degree bracket. I'm going to insert that into my design as well. He's down there. Go ahead and right click and break that link. I'm going to use this little adapter. I'm going to kind of bolt this onto the frame and then use that to give myself an upright. So this is totally not in the position it's going to go, but it doesn't matter. The joint command will take care of it. So I clicked on joint. I'm going to hover over this surface, hold down controller command to lock the joint origins in place. This one in the center, that square one, is kind of like the center of mass. It's the center of the area. This little plus sign is the center of the hole, which is definitely what we want. So I'm going to grab the center of that hole. We'll put it out here on this top surface over the center of that hole. And it fits on there nice and perfect. That's what I want, but I want this rotated around. So I'm just going to grab the handle. I'm going to rotate it 180. So now, in real life, we would use screws. You can even see the threads in there. We would kind of bolt these together. But in CAD, we don't need to worry about that. So the next thing I'm going to do is start the joint command. And I want to take the center of that hole and move it up here. I want it to be on the center of that hole. Oop, and same thing, I don't want that in the going downward. I want to rotate it, and I want that going upward. So I can go ahead, make that 0 degrees, and then go ahead and lock it in. So now you can see I'm starting to put together different frames of the robot. I can use the holes to put them together. If I need to put this piece on here, I can use a little bracket. Let me go ahead and save this. Make sure I'm saving my work as I go. I'm going to go back into the channel portion. We'll grab a 13-inch piece, insert that into my design. We'll just leave it right there. And this time we're going to do something different. We'll come around. We're going to start out the same. I'm going to put this on the outside section. I'm going to hold down controller command to lock the joint origins in place. Select this one. That's the center of that hole. And then I'm going to come over here, grab one of these holes, hold down, make sure that you're hovering over the surface. Hold down controller command and then grab the origin in the center. It's going to lock those two together. But instead of this rigid joint right here, I want to do a revolute joint. So it's going to allow those two things to spin. We'll go ahead, and it moved this piece off of the blue one. That's totally fine. We're going to go ahead and say OK. No, and it does not like that. Okay. So we'll go ahead and undo that joint. Oh, I grabbed this orange piece. I need to grab this red one. That was my bad. Sorry, joint origin. Grab the center of that one. This is already rigidly attached over here, so I can't rigidly attach it over there. The red one should be fine. Hover over the surface, controller command, and grab your origin. And same thing, we got the rotating symbol. So now I've got this piece over here, but since I put a revolute joint on it, if I grab any of these other things, they're all rigidly attached. I kind of click and drag and nothing's moving. But on this piece, I can spin this thing around. We'll get a nice side view. I can grab it and I can spin this thing around. You can also see it's got a little tracker on here. I can kind of click in there and type in 0 and it goes back to where it was. So not only can I put a little joint in there that allows it to revolve, but I can come in here and click on that joint, right click on it, and then say edit joint limits. And then the easiest thing to do is to kind of come in here. We get it centered in my screen. I'm going to select this minimum box, and now I've got these little arrows here. Okay, and I can kind of click and drag these, and I can kind of give myself a range of rotation, and I can either adjust the minimum or the maximum values of where I want this thing to rotate. Okay, and I can kind of zoom out and see what's going on here. And you know what? It's got the green thing moving instead of the red thing. So it'll still apply the limits, but it doesn't look like I want it to. So what I need to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back. I'm going to delete that joint all the way back to here. Undo the limits and undo the drive joint. Undo that joint. I started the joint over here. I actually want to start the joint on this red piece. I want to attach this to that, and that's going to make a difference in how it lines up. So go back, click the joint command. I'm going to start over here. Then I'm going to attach this piece to this piece. Hover over the surface, hold controller command, and then lock it to the joint. So now you can see the preview that this red piece is moving around the green piece, which is going to make it easier for us to kind of animate. I'm going to come in here, right click, and do edit the joint limits. And now when I start putting maximum minimums in here, it's going to make a lot more sense. So I'm changing the minimum, and we'll change the maximum, and I drag it down a little bit like that. And this is just completely arbitrary. This is me just goofing around. But you can see now that when I put this thing into motion, it's only going to let me move it in certain places. Okay, so that's just another tool to have. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and put some, throw a wheel on here. Come into the vector. Oops, I got to remember to break that joint. Right click, break link. Just hit capture position, it's fine. I'm going to right click on this, insert into current design. Oops, a daisy. My computer's not happy, there it goes. So it throws the wheel in there, we'll go ahead and OK. I'm going to right click on this and break the link. I'll remember to do that at the beginning. And same thing, I'm going to click on joint. I'm going to grab the face of this wheel in the center of the wheel. And I'll come up here and I'll put it on one of the holes, center of that hole. And it's a Revolute joint, so I got a nice, looks like a nice wheel it's going to spin. We'll go ahead and grab a motor, come here to the Rev Robotics folder, insert into current drawing. We're going to grab this whole motor right here. When I put this motor in, this whole pattern on the front of the motor right here does not match up with the whole pattern on the channel. If I try to joint it, I can try to grab the center of one of those dots, and then the center of one of these up here. And not only does it break the motor apart, we're going to change this back to a rigid joint. But if I kind of come around here to the other side and look at it face on, oops, this left side, you can see that even though I've got this thing in here and I can kind of try to rotate it around, that's bolted in the center, but the center of the shaft is not in the center of the hole. They're made by different companies and they just have different bolt patterns, so it's not going to fit. And also when I tried to joint that, this entire thing came apart. So I'm going to come up here, going to right click on this and say break link. And I'm also going to click on this thing. I'm going to right click on it. And I want to come down here to where it says rigid group. And this is just going to lock, there's a whole lot of different parts to this motor that are already inside of that motor. When I hit rigid group, it's going to go ahead and lock all of those things together. Okay, and now that I've made this a rigid group, this whole motor moves around as one item. I can still put this on my robot. I just need to be a little bit smarter about what I pick. So I'm going to come in here, and this little pink thing right here is a spacer. So I'm going to grab this ring and hold down control. And then this is going to be the center of that ring. So now I've got the center of the motor, and I can come over here like I've done before, hover over the surface, and select the center of that. And it's going to put just that bearing in there. But when I go ahead, and let's make sure that this is a rigid attachment. When I say OK, it's going to bring the rest of the motor with it. But it's kind of facing the wrong way. So I'm going to come back in here, right click and say Edit Joint. And we come over here to this flip command. And that's going to bring the entire motor the correct way. So I can go ahead and save this. So I want you to go ahead and build yourself a little practice robot. I want it to have a frame. I want it to have at least 2 motors. It should have 4 wheels and should have some kind of movable arm. It does not have to be a robot that is good for competing in this year's game. It just needs to have some kind of frame, some kind of movable arm, and 4 wheels. If you have any questions, just ask. Thank you so much.